Hey guys, this is Eric Vento with Government to Private. We have yet another podcast here with Justin Brown, where we discuss the transition from government to private. And I'm really excited for this session because Justin and I have known each other for quite some time. We've never been BFFs, but we've known each other. We've connected. We've had a lot of conversations before in the past. And, the purpose of this is, as I've shared in previous podcasts, to really let you get a comprehensive perspective from a lot of different people on their own transition stories and let you understand that it's really possible to transition successfully in a number of different ways. There's not a one size fits all approach, and there's a lot of different ways to be successful out of the government. So without further ado, Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's an absolute pleasure. As you said, you and I have known each other for a while, and I definitely leaned on you during my transition. So it's a pleasure to be on with you.
Absolutely, brother. I'm grateful you're here, and I'm glad we could finally have this podcast. So let's go ahead and jump in, brother. So
Yeah.
You came from the U.S. military, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your background at a high level, and specifically, what your last role was before you decided to transition.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I was in the Army for about 21 years when I decided to retire. My last role, I was stationed out of Fort Hood, and I was working. I'm a all-source intelligence analyst, working with a unit, and I was the director of their intelligence section there, and had been there for a couple of years. I had my intel career spanned kind of every facet of combat arms to special operations support to different agencies all over. So I really got kind of a wide range of difference. And my last position was pretty great and set me up pretty good to give me some time to transition. So I thought.
Okay, so you're in the Army for 20 plus years, and your last role that you were a director of intelligence, for a specific unit, and kind of tell us what your day-to-day consisted of.
So honestly, I was running, an office of different intelligence professionals. I was senior enlisted, not an officer, so I had some officers enlisted working for me, running day to day, supporting because that unit is kind of constantly forward deployed all over the world in different areas, doing different things. And so I was running that kind of support day to day, running the at home kind of operations, but at the same time prepping all of the different sections, teams, and units that would be going forward on a rotational basis. So always having to be abreast of different kind of intel operations going on internationally that would affect the different things that we were doing.
Gotcha. Understood. And, during the course of that position, when did you start thinking that it was time to get out and do something different?
Man, I can tell you the moment. So like I was actually I'm in that role, and they needed a senior leader to deploy pretty quickly for a while to go head up a team out in Africa. And so I went out there, and I've been there for a while, and team was doing a great job. We're having a great time doing great things. And so I'm sitting there in the middle of Africa. It's been like 20 years or so. And it just kind of, I'd always, heard, it's when it's time, it's time. And I did actually back in like 2013, I thought it was time, and I tried to get out of I was trying to get out of the Army at that time. And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks that it was the wrong time. I was not getting lucky. And I am really glad I did not make that decision because I wasn't done with the Army. I was just tired. And I thought that meant I was tired of the Army. No, I was just tired. I needed a break. So I didn't get out, which was a great choice that I made. But I'm sitting there in Africa, and it just hit me, and I knew it was time. And because what kind of my thought process was I've always been proud of what I did, always been proud of my service, always been proud of the people around me and the people I served and served with. But thought I did the best I could do at everything that I tried. And but it kind of came over me, and I was starting to get like frustrated, and I was starting to get, I don't know, the very beginning stages of maybe jaded a bit on some things, just little things that were starting to eat at me a little bit. And it just kind of came over me, something that one of my first leaders ever told me, who said, get out on your terms, right? And so I thought I would rather get out on my terms now when I'm doing great, and I'm doing good for the people around me, rather than stay in longer and become part of the problem. Because there are leaders in the military and the civilian world everywhere that just are there or in a position too long and end up not doing the people around them a lot of justice. And I just didn't want that to be me. And I thought realistically, if I did stay in, like, 10 more years, 15 more years, which some people can do incredibly and excellently, I thought that I might get maybe I could be part of the problem. Maybe I would get frustrated with it, and that would show with my leadership and my work. And I didn't want that to be my story. You're muted.
First time that's ever happened. Okay.
You're good.
So
It wasn't me.
what steps did you start to take to, start that transition process, or at least begin the discovery process of what that would look like?
That's a great question, because nobody in the military knows anything about getting out of the military because they're in, right? They don't know.
Right.
So asking your peers doesn't really help you. And funny enough, and there's no plug for this at all. I'm just telling you what was like helpful was I had heard about this platform called LinkedIn, but it was what I thought it was like a program that helped you write a resume or something. I wasn't too sure. And so I'm in Africa, and I'm like, let me check this out, and maybe it can help me write a resume. Um, and so I got on there, and I started working around and looking around. And I remember when I got 10 connections, and I was like, there's no possible way you could get 15 or 20. That's literally impossible to get that many connections, right? And I don't know that many people. And so I put in my retirement packet, started up my LinkedIn, and I started talking with people. I transitioned back to the States, and I started my process. But I knew that I couldn't fail this time like I was failing before. But what was happening before? What was happening before is I was relying on what was told to me, like, oh, you have a clearance, you're going to be successful. You have some experience, you're going to be successful. But I wasn't making myself marketable. Like I wasn't making, and I didn't know why. So I decided to talk to people smarter than me, which is a lot of people, and better than me, people who had been there. And I decided where I kind of wanted to go. And I started reaching out, and I started asking subject matter experts that were already in the industry, not people trying to go or eventually wanting to go, people there right now, and saying, hey, you're already there. What do people around you, what do they have? What do they need? What do they come to the table with, when you bring them on board? What certifications, what kind of education, what is needed, and what do and starting to have those conversations. I started filling my entire schedule with 6 to 8 conversations a day. I started filling my schedule with networking, and not just the people that I thought could help me get a job, people that knew more than me. I reached out to you. We had conversations because you're smarter than me. And
Whatever.
and I needed to know. I needed to know why people and how people failed. I needed to know that. And I needed to know what mistakes, I could potentially run into that I'm not seeing. And when you're transitioning out of, government to private commercial world, there's so much terminology you're not aware of. There's so many things there's a world that I was unexposed to, and I was hidden in my military shell. So it was really just getting exposure to other people, and reaching out and getting that kind of knowledge and lessons learned from everybody that had already done it.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, because that's probably the number one piece of advice that I give everyone outside of, having a good resume and a good profile is, number one thing that you can do that doesn't cost anything except time is conversations with people. And even if their experience or their story doesn't necessarily relate to you, it's still good context,
Yeah.
because just building a relationship with someone automatically or usually means that you can leverage their network.
Yeah.
and it's like a Venn diagram. It's like a rock skipping across a pond. Whatever metaphor you want to use for this, the more people that you have in your corner, then that increases the likelihood of you landing a job, getting an intro somewhere, etc. And eventually just gaining enough information where you kind of feel like, hey, this is what the route that I want to explore,
Exactly.
and that's one of the biggest things that people who are coming out of the government just don't understand is they're like, well, I'm coming from, a place where everything is so black and white, meaning that I know what my job is, I know
Yeah.
what I'm getting paid, I know my benefits, I know, a lot of things because, the government is usually, pretty stable,
Hmm.
usually, obviously. And, you're going to the corporate world that you've heard, or maybe you haven't heard a lot of stuff about, that is in a lot of ways the opposite of stable.
Yeah.
Like it can be hard to figure out what a job
Yeah.
pays. It can be hard to figure out the benefits. Like it'd be hard to figure out, what the day to day actually consists of. Sometimes the job description doesn't actually pertain whatsoever to the job in question. And I mean, there's so many different ways that we could go on and on about that, but at the end of the day, you're kind of going from an extremely transparent environment in a lot of ways to a position that has a lot of gray area attached to it, and you won't really know how much gray area until you get in there.
Yeah.
And like I said, when you come out of the government and you've been there for a long period of time, take the guys who were lifers,
Hmm.
for example, that's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
And it's ingrained in you. It's a part of your identity. It's a part of, you know, okay, tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna have PT, then I'm gonna do this, then I'm gonna do that. And, like there's a certain level of comfort and stability with that kind of routine. Same thing in law enforcement. And when you go to the corporate world, it's like, okay, well, what is tomorrow going to consist of? How do I ensure that it's something that is challenging? What do I need to do to ensure that it's a soft landing?
Hmm.
And as much as talking to people kind of seems like a no-brainer, for people like you and I, the idea of putting ourselves out there on social media can really seem like, you want me to do what?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, it's really good to have, people like you and other people who are like so encouraging about, please have as many conversations as possible, because that's how you're going to gain the knowledge that you need to take the next step.
100%. Really, I know it's oversaid, but it can't be underestimated. Your network is your net worth. Really, if you look at how the corporate world works nowadays, even government contracting, if that's what people want to go into, everything is a lot about, of course, your experience and what you bring to the table, but it's about who you know and who trusts you and who vouches for you, the conversations that you've had, and in what circles. And and like you said, if people like you have these conversations and now can support you, because they realize what your vision is and what you're doing. Really, I had to start subscribing to the idea, which is pretty powerful, of I am a brand, right? Which I never really understood. I am a brand. I need to sell my brand, and people need to know what my brand is about. What am I interested in? What am I looking for? What is my background? What can I do for you and bring to the table? And can you trust my brand? And that was big to me. And I needed the people that I was speaking with to know exactly where I wanted to go and how to get there a bit, and then fine tune that with me and try to help that. With their experience level, and the more people I could talk to, the better, because I was a sponge. And I really needed to understand, like, where what their journey was, and any kind of insight they may have. I was even and really, I've been in for 21 years. I haven't interviewed for a job in over 21 years. Like, when I was getting a jobs as a kid, you fill out a piece of paper and like you kind of get a job. It's not a real job. So I don't know what I don't know what this life is like anymore. And so I started interviewing for everything. I started interviewing for jobs that I never wanted ever, but I needed to get the practice. I needed to get comfortable. I needed to know what that was like, because I really didn't want my first interview to be that one job that I really, really wanted. I wanted me to be prepared. I wanted me to be comfortable. I wanted to know those questions and already know my answers. And so I can make that interview a conversation instead of an interrogation. And
Yeah.
you're only going to get there by doing for me, because I don't learn things very easily. I need to get hit in the head a lot. Is I needed repetition. I needed to get knocked down
Yeah.
on it.
I even, I take that one step further and I tell people I'm extremely happy where I am. I love my full-time job. And if you want to know what I do, feel free to go to LinkedIn and check it out. I'm not going to say it on here, but I love it. It's a great job. I'm super happy there. I hope to be there as long as the good Lord lets me be there.
Yeah.
You know, but but I am always interviewing. Always. If someone reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I think you'd be a good fit for that," unless it's something that I have zero experience in, which seems to happen a lot nowadays for some reason, I interview all the time
Mhm.
because you never know. Like, and I've been there. I've been laid off 4 times in my career, and four times is about 4 times too many.
Yeah.
But you can have a great job, you can have a great boss, you can think that everything is going fine, but the needs of the business dictate who gets laid off and who does not. And sometimes, regardless of how much money you're bringing in or how much risk you're mitigating or whatever value that you're bringing the company, sometimes your position is going to be made redundant. And at that point in time, I would rather have maybe some irons in the fire that I can, get going again, so to speak, rather than starting from ground zero,
Yeah.
and that's a bit of a counterproductive thing to a lot of people,
Yeah.
because they're like, well, why would you interview if you're happy? And it's because of the instability in the private sector,
Yeah.
and but it's also a good way just to keep in practice with interviewing, because even though I do a lot of interview preparation and mock interviews for people
Mhm.
who are needing that assistance, it's a really good way for me to maintain those skills because, well, let's face it, I mean, if you're not using it, you're losing it.
Right. No, I love that. And it's something not only do I tell everybody that I come into contact with, believe it or not, even as the director, the head of my company, I tell my employees that. They come to me and they say, "Hey, I got this company that reached out." And I always say the same thing. It never hurts to have a conversation.
Yeah.
It doesn't. What does that
Yeah.
hurt to have a conversation? Because what if you turn that conversation down? You don't know what it is. And so I will always have a conversation with anybody. It doesn't mean that I'm not loyal or not willing to, put it in and stay where I'm at, because I am definitely that person that is loyal and hardworking and want to continue growing what I've built and those around me. But I tell everybody to have the conversation. Conversations are how we learn, and you never know what something is. You can't know anything about it until you have that conversation. So
Yep.
I fully believe in that. And like you said, it's uh, companies are going to do what companies are going to do on the outside, and regardless of you or I or anybody, and that's okay. That's business. It's not show friends; it's show business. And so and that's okay. But that works on the adverse side of employees as well, not just top down. It's bottom up. For everybody else should be looking out for their interests, just like a business is looking out for their own.
Right.
Um, and if you do it correctly, if you do it right, then when people go have those conversations, they realize they're perfectly happy and they love where they're at.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, you can have that conversation and then you're like, hey, you know what? After further, consideration, I'm not interested, but I do know a great fit, and here it is.
There you
You
go.
know, or at the very least, you're building a relationship that you don't know what could happen down the road.
Yep.
And so, like you said, it's just a good way to stay in practice. You
Yeah.
know,
I Our world is smaller than we think, and burnt bridges don't get rebuilt very easily. And so when people reach out to me with like an opportunity, I'm very appreciative that they thought of me. That's great. It may not be the best fit, the right time, or really what I'm looking for, but it really might be somebody. I have a large network of people. It really could be somebody, and you do it all the time. You do it all the time. That people are like, oh, I've got this position, and you're hyperlinking everybody's name that you know is in the area or in that industry. You do it, and you've been doing it forever. And I've been hooked, and I'll send people like, hey, I got this. It's not great for me, but this person it would be great for, and link them together.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a, I mean, I may be like the minority here, and obviously I can only speak for myself, but I feel like it's so easy.
Yeah.
Like if you know of someone who's looking for a job and you know kind of what they're looking for, where they are, what their background is, it's one of the reasons why I always encourage my clients or anyone that I talk to have their green banner up,
Yeah.
if they're looking for a job, because there's a lot of like talk on LinkedIn about, well, it makes you look desperate. Well, I am desperate for a job, but at the same time, it's like I can't tell you how many times that I'm scrolling through LinkedIn, I see a green banner, and then 10 or 15 clicks later, I see a job that is perfect for them,
Yeah.
you know, and I can tag them on it, I can message it to them, but I never would have known they were interested had it not been for that green banner,
Hmm.
And so, at the end of the day, it's a visibility thing, and if you see a job on LinkedIn and you know of someone in your network who's looking, or someone in your on your page or within your friend list or something like that that's looking for a job, it takes 2 seconds to tag them,
Yep.
and you never know what could come out of it. I've had probably 6 or 7 people in the last year who have reached out and said, hey, remember that job that you tagged me on? I got that job,
Wow.
and it's just
Yeah.
like, it's like, I don't say that for any other reason than to say we have unique responsibilities,
Yeah.
and we can either be as engaged or as aloof as possible, but taking those actions can lead to some very real world impacts for people, you know, and like I said, it's a lot of work, obviously,
Yeah.
but like I've been unemployed before, I've been laid off, and I've had a lot of people help me.
Yeah.
And, not only is it a question of paying it forward, but it's also a question of, well, if I was in that position, would I want someone tagging my name there?
Yeah.
And it's like, if it literally, hit the app button, type their name, done. If nothing comes out of it, not your fault, but
I
you're given
remember
the opportunity.
I remember not too long ago you were hitting the app button with my name. Things. So like I'm a true believer in that, because a lot of people, you can hear it, but believe it or not, there's no such thing as, there's no such thing as a self-made man or woman, self-made individual. Like, oh, I got here on my own and nobody helped me.
Mhm.
That's not true. That's not true. I know that I kind of thought that way when I was younger, but that's not true. I got here because somebody gave me a chance. Somebody believed in
Yeah.
me. Somebody trusted me. Somebody helped me out when maybe they shouldn't have, or maybe they trusted me when they shouldn't, or they didn't know they could yet. And somebody did that, which enabled me to then show them that they were right, that they made a good choice. And yeah, I had to do that and prove that, but I couldn't be able to do it if somebody didn't hand me that kind of opportunity to be able to do so. And so if we can go ahead and do that for others, is it doesn't mean we have to, anybody needs to benefit off of it. Link people up for internships coming out of the government. Try to source that. Help them with their resume if they need it. Help them with their LinkedIn. Help them with an interview skill. Link them with somebody that maybe I don't have a job for you, or this guy doesn't, but I know a person. I know this industry is looking, because it doesn't hurt any of us to have others succeed. That doesn't.
Yeah.
You know?
I tell people all the time that you can be extremely successful in your own right. You can make millions of dollars. You can be, world renowned, but you'll never be as successful as the people that you surround yourself with,
Mhm.
And I probably didn't say that right, but what I meant to say was that you will never be as successful as as when you're working within a group, as when you're involving others in your journey, because, there's that saying, no man is an island.
Mhm.
And, like I can be really successful by myself, but it's only when we involve others in our journey and our story, and we allow them to inject their own value and their own personality and their skill sets. And we kind of swallow our pride and we suck down our ego and we say, okay, how can you contribute to my story?
Yeah.
That it becomes a truly comprehensive and enriching, journey.
Yeah. I love that. I tell my people, I've been saying it ever since I became a junior leader in the military, and I had no clue what I was doing, and I probably still don't. But I would always say the same thing: is I love working as a group and as a team. Why? Because me by myself, I'm a moron. I got nothing really going on up here. But when I surround myself with really great, smart people, that IQ is the accumulative of a genius level. The more people you have around you to contribute to a problem set or to think forward and to value what they have and what they bring to the table, the better off you're going to be. We don't get there alone, and we're not going to. And so, and I really try to embody that. It's something that I said to every leader that I had above me in the military, and everything I say to leaders above me now, and the people that work around me and for me, is I say I would tell them, I don't want to work for you. I will never work for you. I will work with you.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful difference, because if I work for you, I'm just waiting for the next task. I'm gonna do it, mediocre, however you told me, just so I can get it done. But if I work with you, no, we have the same goals, we have the same passion, we have the same mindset, and we're gonna work on that problem together. I don't want anybody to work for me, and I don't want to work for anybody. I think people should work with you on your common goal and your priorities and requirements.
Yeah, absolutely. So I could talk about this the rest of the night,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, neither of us have time for that. So, as we approach kind of the end, beyond what we've already discussed, what advice would you give to people who are in the transition process now or considering that process?
Man, and again, this is not an advertisement or beat the drum for it, but people have got to get on LinkedIn now. Like, honestly, there was nothing more quintessential to my success in my transition than getting on LinkedIn and building my network and scheduling conversations. And believe me, everybody on LinkedIn wants to have a conversation with you for free, just to talk to you. They do. And get on there and start talking to people in the industry you want to be in, that you want to be in. Start getting their advice immediately. You cannot start too soon. Like, if you start 2 years before your transition, you've already almost started late. Don't be discouraged. But start now,
Yeah.
and build that and build your brand. Start and figure out what certifications you don't know about that next job really looks up on or may require that you had no idea that existed. And then go get those to set you up better, so you can just slide right in to that job, hopefully, because you've already networked and talked with, and those people know you and your brand by the time you go apply.
Absolutely, brother. Preach, preach, preach.
Yeah.
So as we finish up, brother, I want to make sure you have a time to, present your plug about, where you work and what you do, and that course that you guys just created that you happen to be, featured on, recently. So knock yourself out, brother. Let's hear it.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to tell everybody that listens and sees this is government to private podcasts. I'm really serious about supporting veterans and getting them into the commercial workforce. So right now, currently, I just launched it. I have a brand new job open in Fayetteville, North Carolina, that I am hiring for right now, hiring veterans right now in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's for a senior open source intelligence instructor, full-time position in North Carolina right now. So if you are looking for a job and you got that green halo around you, Well, I have one. If you have experience with open source intelligence or any kind of instruction method, I'm hiring right now. And so my company is Echo Analytics Group, based out of Tampa, Florida, and we have a branch in North Carolina as well. And we are an open source intelligence company that focuses on open source operations. So I've got a team of analysts doing actual open source intelligence and publicly available information research for a wide variety of worldwide commercial clients. And then we also have our academy, where we do open source intelligence instruction. We have in-person, on-demand, virtual virtual courses where we teach not only commercial clients and fusion cells and analysts and investigators and journalists how to be better at their open source research from the beginning to the advanced levels, but we also have a host of Department of Defense courses where we work with digital reconnaissance. We work with all kinds of managing attributions to the beginning to the fundamental, for the fundamentals to advanced levels of open source intelligence. And we service and work with worldwide clients in that venue. What Eric's referencing is I was on the Tampa Bay Morning News Show because we were part of an international counter human trafficking conference. And we just launched our in-person, one-of-a-kind counter human trafficking, open source for counter human trafficking investigations course, which really doesn't exist elsewhere. And we're launching that now. And if anybody is an investigator or in a nonprofit or law enforcement that deals with counter human trafficking, just by mentioning that you saw me on Government to Private podcast, I'll give you $300 off the price of the course if you want to attend it. And all of our courses are nationally certified.
Awesome. You know, that course sounds super interesting. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, like, that sounds really fun to me as well. And I really appreciate, you know, what you do. And, you know, at the end of the day, we all want to work for a job that we feel like really challenges us and really provides a lot of value. And a lot of us obviously don't have that. We don't have that choice, you know, but if we do have a choice, we want to work for a good leader. We want to work for a job or a company that really values what we do and that we get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And it definitely seems like that job is that for you, you know. And you know, I see your post on LinkedIn, and obviously I've seen quite a few of you know, your recordings, especially lately with the new course. And I'm just really happy that it seems to be a good spot for you.
Thanks. It's not without struggle. It's not without pain. It's not without fires and holes in the raft. But nothing is. And it wouldn't be great if it was that easy. So because coming out of law enforcement like you, coming out of the military, you know, every once in a while we enjoy a good fight. So but yes, I do enjoy it, and more so than anything, it's the people that I work with and the people that I work for. That's what makes it. The people to your left and right are really what make the day-to-day enjoyable, honestly.
Amen, Justin. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast. And I really hope that if you're listening, that you get a lot of enjoyment out of it. If you want to, feel free to reach out to Justin personally, leave a comment. You know, we do this for you. We do this for the listeners, and even if it helps one person, it's worth it. So, Justin, thanks again, and I hope you have a good night.
Yeah, I forgot, if they do want to take that course and get a deal because they saw it on here, they have to email my training info at echoanalyticsgroup.com and let me.
There we go. I'll make sure to include that on the post.
Brother, it was a pleasure. I will always be one of your biggest fans, and as you always have supported me, so I really appreciate it. And I love to be back anytime, but I'm sure I probably won't get the invite.
Whatever, man. We'll chat soon. Thank you so much, and have a good night, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Be safe.